laws regulating restaurants, and secondary tourism enterprises.
Good day, everyone. I am Fhelrose-Anne Yacap, a third-year student of the Visayas State University, taking up Bachelor of Science in Hospitality Management. This video is our final requirement for our subject, Legal Aspect in Tourism and Hospitality. In this video, we are going to discuss the laws regulating the restaurants and the secondary enterprises. So these laws are the Food Safety Act of 2013, the Sanitation Code of the Philippines, and the Consumer Act of the Philippines. And I am going to discuss the Food Safety Act of 2013, or the Republic Act number 10611.
The Republic Act number 10611 was signed by the late President Benigno S. Aquino III on the 23rd of August 2013. It is otherwise known as Food Safety Act of 2013, which is an act to strengthen the food safety regulatory system in the country, to protect and promote consumer health, and facilitate market access of local foods and food products, and for other purposes. Duration of policy. Section 15, Article 2 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution declares that the state shall protect and promote the right to health of the people and instill health consciousness among them. Furthermore, Section 9, Article 16 provides that the state shall protect consumers from trade malpractices and from substandard or hazardous products. Toward these ends, the state shall maintain a farm-to-fork food safety regulatory system that ensures a high level of food safety, promotes fair trade, and advances the global competitiveness of the Philippine foods and food products. This law primarily aims to strengthen the food safety regulatory system in the country, to protect the public from foodborne and waterborne illnesses and unsanitary, unwholesome, misbranded, or adulterated foods, to enhance industry and consumer confidence in the food regulatory system, and achieve economic growth and development by promoting fair trade practices and sound regulatory foundation for domestic and international trade. In determining whether food is injurious to health, regard shall be given to the following: the probable immediate, short, or long-term effects on subsequent generations of that food on health, the probable cumulative effects, and the particular health sensitivities of a specific category of consumers where the food is intended for that category. Section 5. The food safety requirements. To ensure food safety, the following general guidelines shall be observed. In determining whether food is unsafe, the following shall be considered: the normal conditions of the use of food by the consumer, the normal conditions maintained at each stage of primary production, processing, handling, storage, and distribution, the health of plants and animals from where the food is derived, the effect of feeds, crop protection chemicals, and other production inputs on otherwise healthy plants and animals, and the information provided to the consumer. This includes the information provided on the label of any information generally available to the consumer. This should aid consumers in avoiding specific health effects from a particular food or category of food. Food law objectives. The food law shall aim for a high level of food safety, protection of human life and health in the production and consumption of food. It shall also aim for the protection of consumer interests through fair practices in the food trade. Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health shall set the mandatory food safety standards. The principal responsibility of food business operators. The food business operators shall ensure that food satisfy the requirement of food law and that control systems are in place to prevent, eliminate, or reduce risks to consumer. The specific responsibilities of food business operators. The food business operators shall have the following responsibility under the law. The first one, they shall be knowledgeable of the specific requirements of food law relevant to their activities in the food supply chain and the procedures adopted by relevant government agencies that implement the law. Second, if a food business operator considers that a food is not safe or not in compliance with food safety requirements, it shall immediately initiate procedures to withdraw the food. Third, they shall allow inspection of the businesses and collaborate with the regulatory authorities. And lastly, where the unsafe product may have reached the consumer, the operator shall inform the consumer of the reason for the withdrawal, and if necessary, recall the same from the market. 15 of this law is the principal responsibilities of government agencies. The Department of Agriculture shall be responsible for food safety in the primary production and post-harvest stages of food supply chain and food locally produced or imported in this category. The Department of Health shall be responsible for the safety of processed and prepacked foods, foods locally produced or imported under this category, and the conduct of monitoring and epidemiological studies on foodborne illnesses. LGUs shall be responsible for foods from the principal responsibilities of the agencies under the Department of Agriculture. In Section 18, communication of risks and DOH is the Bureau of Quarantine, which NCDPC, the shall DOH, strategize the Section 19, the LGU, as the DILG shall support Section the identify the agency responsible. Whereas in Section 26, Section 28, the appropriation whereas Section 31 whereas Section 37 Section 38 the offender does not have.
Good day. My name is Fraulein Mae M. Lipardo, a third-year BSHM student of Visayas State University, and today I am going to discuss the Code on Sanitation of the Philippines, Presidential Decree Number 856. Whereas the health of the people being of paramount importance, all efforts of the public services should be directed towards the protection and promotion of health, and whereas With the advance in the field of sanitation in recent years, there arises the need for updating and codifying our scattered sanitary laws to ensure that they are in keeping with modern standards of sanitation and provide a handy reference and guide for their enforcement. As enacted by Presidential Decree 856, the Department of Health will undertake the promotion and preservation of the health of the people and raise the health standards of individuals and communities throughout the Philippines. Extend maximum health services to the people in rural areas and provide medical care to those who cannot afford it by reason of poverty. Develop, administer, and coordinate various health activities and services which shall include public health, preventive, curative, and rehabilitative programs, medical care, health and medical education services. Upgrade the standards of medical practice, the quality of health services and programs to assure the people of better health services. Issue permits to establish and operate government and private hospitals, clinics, dispensaries, schools of nursing, midwifery, and other paramedical corps, puriculture centers, clinical laboratories, and blood banks. Chapter 3 of the Sanitation Code, Food Establishments. Section 14, Sanitary Permit. No person or entity shall operate a food establishment for public patronage without securing a permit from the local health office. Every sanitary permit shall be posted in a conspicuous place of the establishment. Every city or municipality shall keep a record of all establishments in respect of which permits have been issued and all permit certificates and renewals thereof. Section 15, Health Certificates. No person shall be employed in any food establishment without a health certificate issued by the local health authority. This certificate shall be issued only after the required physical and medical examinations are performed and immunizations are administered at prescribed intervals. Section 16. All food must be obtained from sources approved by the local health authority. Meats, meat products, and fish shall be procured from sources under sanitary or veterinary supervision. Milk and fluid milk products shall be obtained from the sources approved by the local health authority. All perishable and potentially hazardous foods shall be stored at 45° Fahrenheit or below. Section 18. Use of food service spaces. Food service spaces shall not be used as living or sleeping quarters. Clothing or personal effects shall be kept in lockers or in designated places away from food service spaces. No animal or live fowls shall be allowed. Persons not directly connected with food preparation and serving shall not be allowed to stay in food serving spaces. Section 19. Food handlers. Food handlers shall at all times wear clean working garments. The cook shall wear prescribed caps and female employees caps or hairnets. Observe good personal hygiene. Wash their hands thoroughly with soap and water and dry them with a clean or disposable towel or a suitable hand drying device immediately before working or after visiting the toilet. Section 20. Vermin Control. Vermin is a group of insects or small animals such as flies, mosquitoes, cockroaches, fleas, lice, bedbugs, mice, and rats which are vectors of diseases. A vermin abatement program shall be maintained in the establishments by their owners, operators, or administrators. During the rating or disinfecting operations, all foodstuffs, utensils, food preparation, and cleaning equipment shall be covered to protect them from toxic chemical substances. Section 31. Evaluation of food establishments shall be the duty of the provincial, municipal, or city health officer to cause an inspection and evaluation of every food establishment requiring a permit for its operation at least every 6 months and shall cause as many additional inspections and re-inspections and evaluation to be made as are necessary for the enforcement of the provision of this chapter. General provisions under Chapter 14, Section 64, Accommodation Establishments. No establishment shall be operated and opened for the public patronage without a sanitary permit issued by the Secretary or his duly authorized representative. Any extension or additional construction in an establishment shall require a sanitary permit before it could be operated. All establishments shall provide their patrons with adequate water supply, toilet, and bath facilities in accordance with standards prescribed in this code. Establishments and their premises shall be kept clean and sanitary at all times. Periodic insect and vermin control measures shall be undertaken to eradicate vectors of diseases. Animals, fowls, and pets shall be housed in appropriate kennels or cages separate from living quarters. No person shall be employed in establishments without first procuring a health certificate from the local health authority. General provisions under Chapter 15, Section 66, Port, Airport, Vessel, and Aircraft Sanitation. Every port and airport shall be provided with potable drinking water and wholesome food supplied from sources approved by the Secretary or his duly authorized representative. The drinking water and food shall be stored and handled in a manner to ensure their protection against contamination. The local health authority shall conduct periodic inspections of equipment, installations, and premises, and collect regularly samples of water and food for laboratory examination to determine if they are fit for human consumption. There shall be available to as many ports and airports as practicable organized medical and health services with adequate staff, equipment, and facilities for the prompt isolation and care of infected persons, disinfection, disinfecting, derating, laboratory examination, collection and examination of rodents for plague infection, collection of water and food samples for examination. In ports and airports of entry, facilities shall be provided for immunizations required in international travel. Vessel sanitation. For the purpose of this section, the provisions of Article 2 of the Quarantine Regulations promulgated under Section 5 of Republic Act No. 123 shall be applied and enforced. Aircraft sanitation. For the purpose of this section, the requirements in the Guide to Hygiene and Sanitation in Aviation of the World Health Organization are adopted as part of this code.
Hello everyone, I will now discuss the important highlights of the Republic Act 7394, or also known as the Consumer Act of the Philippines.
Consumer Act of the Philippines, or the Republic Act No. 7394. Article 1, or the short title. This act shall be known as the Consumer Act of the Philippines. Declaration of Basic Policy. It is the policy of the state to protect the interests of the consumer, promote his general welfare, and to establish standards of conduct for business and industry to implement measures to achieve, among others, the protection against deceptive, unfair, and unconscionable sales, acts, and practices. Declaration of Policy. It shall be duty of the state to develop and provide safety and quality standards for consumers' products, including performance or use-oriented standards, codes of practice, and method of test. To assist the consumer in evaluating the quality, including safety, performance, and comparative utility of consumer products, to protect the public against unreasonable risk of injury associated with consumer products, to undertake research on quality improvement of products and investigation into causes and prevention of product-related death, illnesses, and injuries, to assure the public of the consistency of standards products. The implementing agencies of this Republic Act. The provision of this article and implementing rules and regulations shall be enforced by the Department of Health with respect to drugs, cosmetics, devices, and substances. Department of Agriculture with respect to products related to agriculture. And lastly, the Department of Trade and Industry with respect to other consumer products not specified above. Promulgation and adoption of consumer product standards. The concerned department shall establish consumer product quality and safety standards which shall consist of more or one of the following: requirements to performance, composition, contents, design, construction, finished packaging of a consumer product. Requirements as to kind, class, grade, dimension, weights, and materials. Requirements as to methods of sampling, tests, and codes used to check the quality of the products. Requirements as to precautions in storage, transporting, and packaging. And lastly, requirements that a consumer product to be marked with or accompanied by clear and adequate safety warnings of instructions or requirements respecting the form of warnings or instructions. For this purpose, the concerned department shall adopt existing government domestic product quality and safety standards, provided that in the absence of such standards, the concerned department shall form specialized technical committees composed of equal number of representatives from each of the consumer product quality and safety standards. The said technical committee shall consult with the private sector, which may mutuo proprio or develop its own quality and safety standard that shall be subject or agencies after public hearings have been conducted for that purpose. Next is the prohibited acts. It shall be unlawful for any person to manufacture for sale, offer for sale, distribute in commerce, or import into the Philippines any consumer product which is not in conformity with an applicable consumer product quality or safety standard promulgated in this Act. Manufacture for sale, offer for sale, distribute in commerce, or import into the Philippines any consumer product which has been declared as banned consumer product by a rule in this Act. Refuse access to or copying of pertinent records, or fail or refuse to permit entry of or inspection by authorized officers or employees of the department. Fail to comply with an order issued under Article 2 relating to notifications of substantial product hazards and to recall, repair, replace, or refund of unsafe products. And lastly, fail to comply with the rule prohibiting stockpiling. And now here are the penalties. Any person who shall violate any provision of Article 18 shall upon conviction be subjected to a fine of not less than 1,000 pesos but more than 10,000 pesos, or imprisonment of not less than 2 months but more than 1 year, or both upon the discretion of the court. If the offender is an alien, he shall be deported after service of sentence and payment of fine without further deportation or proceedings. In case the offender is a naturalized citizen, he shall, in addition to penalty prescribed herein, suffer the penalty of cancellation of his naturalization certificate and its registration in the civil register, and immediate deportation after service of sentence and payment or fine. Any director, officer, or agent of a corporation who shall authorize, order, or performance of any of the acts or practice constituting in the whole or in part of the violation of Article 18, and who has knowledge or notice of non-compliance received by a corporation from the concerned department shall be subject to penalties to which that corporation may subject. In case the violation is committed by or in the interest of a foreign juridical person duly licensed to engage in the business in the Philippines, such license to engage business in the Philippines shall immediately be revoked. And here are the 8 consumer rights in the Philippines. The first is the right to basic needs. The right to be These guarantee survival, adequate food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, and sanitation, and the availability of the basic prime commodities to consumers are at the affordable prices and of good quality. The right to safety. The right to be protected against the marketing of goods or the provision of services that are hazardous to health and life. Manufacturers of consumer products to undertake extensive safety and performance testing before selling their products in the market. The third one is the right to information. The right to be protected against fraudulent, dishonest, or misleading advertising, labeling, promotion, and the right to be given the facts and information needed to make an informed choice. It includes complete information about the product to be purchased, including its use, ingredients, chemical contents, precaution, if any limitations, and expiry date. The fourth right is the right to choose. The right to choose of products at competitive prices with an assurance of satisfactory quality, a wide array of goods and services which are offered in the market. The next right is the right to representation. The right to express consumer interest in the making and execution of government policies. The right to redress. This is the right to be compensated for misinterpretation, shoddy goods, or unsatisfactory services. The seventh right is the right to consumer education. This is the right of the consumer to acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to be an informed consumer.
And lastly, the right to a healthy environment.
And now, here are the 5 consumer responsibilities. The first one is critical awareness. This is a responsibility of a consumer to be more alert and questioning about the use and the price and quality of goods and services we use. The second responsibility is action. This responsibility is to assert ourselves and act to ensure that we get a fair deal, and always to remember that as long as we remain passive consumers, we will continue to be exploited. The next is social concern. This responsibility is to be aware of the impact of our consumption in other citizens, especially the poor, exploited, disadvantaged, or powerless groups, whether in the local, national, or international community. The fourth responsibility is environmental awareness. This responsibility is to understand the environmental consequences of our consumption. We should recognize our individual and social responsibility to conserve natural resources and protect the earth for future generations. And the last responsibility is solidarity. This responsibility is to organize together as consumers to develop the strength and influence to promote and protect our interests.